Before I had ever incarnated, I remember coming across a being who had. And I was so incredibly inspired by the quality of his nature. It was so full of love and power and wisdom and freedom. And I'm like, oh, do you feel as much freedom as I feel that you feel? It's something I asked him telepathically, and he shared yes. And he showed me many things, qualities of being, experiences he had had, but one in particular was a physical lifetime where he had suffered a long-term health condition. And the way that he chose to meet that experience, you see, allowed this incredible refinement of who he was. And he got to keep that forever. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that. I'm just like so inspired. And at first he said something like, well, that's what they all say. Like, you just don't know how hard this is. And I was like, no, I mean it. Like, and he said, well, go talk to your guides. So here I am in the physical. In my
No, no.
pre-birth experience, I knew that this was like being given a winning lottery ticket. Being given the chance to play a human and to have this depth of contrast was like the most precious gift. It was like, oh my goodness, I feel so honored that the whole system, the larger consciousness system, sees value in me as an individual being playing this character and working through this experience. Wow. I felt so honored.
Welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds.
Hello and welcome to the Endless Possibilities Podcast. My name is Garrett Diagnam and I am your host today for another great conversation. In this podcast, we talk about all things to do with spirituality, awakening, energy healing, past lives, and life in between lives. And today's guest is not going to disappoint. Today we have on the show Christian Sundberg. Christian has worked for over 15 years as a project manager for complex nuclear pump and valve manufacturing projects. Christian is also a public speaker, having presented at over 100 events. When Christian was a young child, he remembered his existence before coming to Earth. While that memory left him completely for his early adult life, it spontaneously returned at the age of 30 as Christian took up meditation practice and went through a personal awakening journey. He also began to have out-of-body experiences, OBEs. Christian now seeks to remind others in at least a small part of who we really are beneath the human play. Christian, the author of the book A Walk in the Physical, which attempts to succinctly describe the larger spiritual context in which we exist and the importance of love in our human journey. Now, Christian, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming to get you on. I reached out over a year ago, or around a year ago, to get you on, but you're super busy with interviews.
Busy with life. I appreciate your patience, sir. Thank you. It's an honor to connect with you finally.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. So, Christian, normally I start the interviews off with you just giving the viewers and the listeners a little bit of background before the current work you're doing at the moment and your incredible journey you've been on. So, what was life like before your 30s when your awakening started?
Right. So before my 30s, yeah, I lived kind of a traditional American life, you know, focused into work and family activities and the rest. And I suppose it's what we do. And those activities still happen, but life is quite different after awakening to who we really are. The shift in consciousness is significant. So while the physical surface might look similar, the method of experiencing the way that I experience life is not the same. So that's primarily in my mind how I would consider that shift is like back then I was really lost in the story, lost in the pain, lost in a lot of my own traumatic history and certain cycles, certain conditioned cycles. Whereas now it's quite a different way of being. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, Yeah, I find it fascinating, right? Listen to your story, right? So early on, you had memories of before you were in a physical body, right? And
Yes.
then those memories seem to fade, and you then played out a very ordinary life,
Yes.
working, college, all that kind of stuff. And then the memories came back later on. So, I mean, maybe we
Yes.
can get into the actual awakening process. So what started that off?
Sure. So, like you mentioned, I had some pre-birth memory up until the age of like 5 or 6, and it left me completely. So, for my teens and 20s, I had no awareness of this at all. In my late 20s, maybe around the age of 30, came across the work of Tom Campbell, and you and I kind of share interest in his work. His work was very meaningful for me. And one of the most important things that he said was just go find out. Don't believe what I'm saying. Go investigate your consciousness. Go look.
Mm.
And that's advice that I love today, even. It's like, really go look. Because, as I went and I looked, I certainly didn't expect anything. But after a few months of having consistent meditation, I had non-physical experiences begin to arise, out-of-body experiences, and the pre-birth memory was just there. So, on the physical surface, what did that look like? It was a meditation practice, but it was also that I was ready because I had really processed certain traumatic experience that I had in my 20s, and I'd really faced and felt and healed a lot of fear. I really think that that needed to happen first for me. And then once I did that and took up the meditation and these experiences began to arise, it was like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, this is real. It was just like so stunning to me that it's real and our society wasn't really talking about it. So I was very excited, but I also realized this is not something everybody talks about every day. And I was still a working professional. So I did not share about my experiences for a number of years, probably around 8 years or so. But I did continue to meditate, continue to have experiences and to learn. And yeah, it was a huge personal shift.
So, Christian, what was that first OBE like? How did
hmm
that come about?
So some of the first experience I had that really shocked the crap out of me was pretty brief, but it was very, very, very tangible and real. So in this experience, first it started as a normal dream, and in the dream, I didn't even know I was dreaming. It was not lucid at the time when it started. In this dream, this wave was going to come over me and kill me. And in the dream, I told myself, okay, let go of your body, just let yourself die. Now, this is probably 4 or 5 months after I started meditating. So I had already felt and perceived a shift in consciousness, though I didn't know what it was. It's hard to describe. Anyway, through that, there was this letting go in this moment in this dream, and suddenly I was awake in a state that I can only describe as a vibrational, I don't know, it was like being stuck inside of a vibrational state where there was it felt like a jet engine had parked on either side of my head, and the noise was so loud and the vibrations were so extreme. It was the most physical feeling, loud, vibratory feeling I've ever felt. And I was very lucid. I was very awake, even though my body wasn't up and walking around. I was awake. And I was probably only there for 15 seconds or something, but it felt so long because of how extreme it was. And when my body woke up, I like jumped out of bed. I was sweating. I was like, what the heck was that? Because it was not subtle. I mean, it was like, honestly, it was quite terrifying, because it was so real. So that was like just dipping the toe in the water. And I understand how Tom describes this, like when you shift data streams, is the way he puts it. As you begin to get the data from the next stream, it can feel and sound like noise, until you've
Okay.
transitioned into the new stream. Well, gosh, he wasn't kidding because this was not like subtle. I mean, it was like more visceral and it was a stronger vibration than I'd ever felt in the physical, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think until you actually go through that, you've no idea what that feels like. It's
Oh, yeah.
so
It's
incredible.
amazing.
And funny enough, you describe it exactly the way I described it. It was like two jet engines either side of
Really?
me,
Oh, interesting.
exactly the same way. The only difference was I had been reading all about it and I was waiting for it. I was like, where are these
Oh, okay.
vibrations? So when they
Okay.
happened, I wasn't so scared, but they were
Okay.
still like I was like, oh my God, this is real.
Yes. Yeah, and people say, well, how do you know that was real? Well, the thing is, when the lucidity is so high in comparison, at least equal to walking around in the physical world, that level of lucidity. It's hard to describe because, and also in higher states. Okay, so even beyond that, like when we get into higher states, the knowingness is so deep and profound
Yeah.
and full. It's so real. It's like an IMAX theater compared to a black and white
Yeah.
television. And then people ask, like, well, how do you know that was real? Well, is the black and white television real? Because if that's real, this is real. Yeah.
I hope you are enjoying the amazing episode with Christian. This is just a quick reminder. If you want to help support us, it's totally free. Just hit subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. Now, back to the show. It's like a super, and I said the same thing. It's people would ask me, well, how do you know it's not just a dream or you're imagining it? It's like it's high definition compared to this
It's high
reality.
definition. Exactly.
I've looked at like trees and plants and they're glowing. It's
They're
like there's a
glowing.
light that you didn't see before emanating from everything. It's incredible. That's
And
pretty,
also, you can feel, at least how I've experienced it, you can feel that that light is a part of you and it's alive and it has its own its own, I don't know, reality, its own life to it, its own essence. And it's just so organic. And even though it might be over there, so to speak, that you can visually perceive, you also can feel that it is a part of you.
yeah.
And oh my gosh, like how do you describe that? Like, yeah, anyway.
It's like the boundaries of your beingness have come down and you're just,
Yes.
yeah, really, really incredible. So before your OBE, you said that you had a shift in consciousness just through your meditation experience.
Yes.
Can you describe that a
Yeah,
little bit? How you shifted?
I would just simply describe say that my relationship with form changed. You know, as I went more towards what I really am, my consciousness itself, really felt it, really explored it, really let go of the form and really allowed the form that did arise, really allowed the thoughts to be what they were and to see them for what they were and to feel all the feelings that were down there, really saying yes to everything, you know.
Yeah.
As I went through that process deeply, personally, there was a shift in consciousness happening that I didn't even know was happening at first. You know, like I wasn't trying to shift consciousness. I was simply being almost like a scientist, you could say, being very objective and going and investigating what am I beneath thought? What is consciousness? And I would explore it. And and there's one thing that Campbell said early on that like I felt was really helpful for me to get a first taste of it, which then led me on, which was he said something like, you know, rest in your own beingness, you will love it.
Yeah,
And
in
I
his
remember
book, I
him saying
remember
that. I'm
it.
like, what do you mean I will love it? Oh man, he wasn't kidding because like when we just like really let go and touch the deeper consciousness that we are, oh, it's so tangibly blissful. So early, you know, before I started having these experiences, I would just have these moments of like peace or like a release, a bliss. Maybe it would happen later, you know, hours after meditation, I'd be walking down the street or doing my dishes or something. Suddenly it was just there and it was like, oh wow. And then you know, it was like there was more life in everything just
Mm,
there, all of this. Like life was arriving. It was like I was removing, I didn't know I was doing this, but I was like removing the barrier between me and life. It's
beautiful.
almost like getting lost in the thoughts and lost in the thought conditioning and all the form association is what I call it now. Being deep in form association is like a separator, you know, and the veil actually, not to get on too big of a topic, but the veil isn't like itself so much the separator. It's just a block, a limitation in active conscious knowing at the human level, such that we can get lost in the form. It just
Mm,
enables form immersion. That's all. But are we truly separated? No, no, no. No, we are never truly separated from our higher nature. That's just like such an important thing to lift up. Yeah.
So it seems you kind of had it slightly different to me. You had the awakening of consciousness prior to the OBEs, whereas
Mm.
I had the OBEs first, and then a few years later, kind of lost interest in the OBEs, and then had
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
spontaneous awakening. Just I had kept my meditation practice going, but maybe we can get into yeah. So were you actively seeking out the OBEs? Were you actively looking
No.
to explore the larger consciousness system, as Tom would put it?
Yeah. Not at first. So especially when they first like started arising, they were just arising. And then once I started having some experiences, then I was super interested in it because it was so real and it was so joyful and so fun. Like, what on earth can
Yeah.
compare?
Yeah.
Like, it just can't compare. However, in my own case at least, I can't speak for everybody else, but in my own case, I felt clearly called, you could say nudged, to focus physical actually, and to not go do all that. Like so I've kind of felt that throughout my journey. Like there are periods I kind of oscillate and stick a toe into the water or have an experience, and that's great. It's beautiful when it arises. But I've always felt very much like, oh no, I need to be human and I need to like not need to, but it would be optimal for me to be fully human, allow myself to fully experience what's here. Like, because that higher context is always there. I mean, I'm not diminishing it. Oh, its value is off the charts, but we always have access to that. We don't always have access to the day-to-day human context and its limitations and its challenges and going to work and filling a car with gas, actually. So I also felt like, okay, like that was beautiful, but really it's more about being that full presence and that full alertness, even in the physical. And so that's been more where my focus has been.
Yeah, a little. It's kind of for me. It was similar. I had about a year and a half of out of body experience, and then they
Hmm.
fizzled out. And
Hmm.
then a couple of years later, I had the awakening and deepening of the kind of levels of consciousness. And then it was like, oh, I was trying to get out of the body, and it's all happening here in the body.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
it's a gift.
there isn't actually, yeah, so Tom Campbell talks about this too. There isn't actually this fundamentally real place called the physical universe. I know it looks like there is. It's super convincing. I get it. It's super convincing. I get it. But as we explore consciousness deeply and consistently over time, we find that the physical universe is actually arising and arriving within consciousness. It's not that consciousness is like stuck down inside a brain. It's more like the brain and the body are like a limitation set that is occurring within consciousness, within beingness. And so, certainly, that higher being can be here as our focus is down into the physical form set. Absolutely. Ironically, as we allow that, as we say yes to that and actually be that here, the doors to the higher just kind of are naturally open. At least that's what I've found. Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that higher being, right? I
Okay.
think that's pretty important. But the pre-birth memories, do you want
Yes.
to get to a little bit about them, how they started to arise?
Well, they kind of all arose at once because it's all connected. And when it arose again for me, it was all just there. It was like someone had blown leaves off of the grass and there was the grass. Like it wasn't strange. I guess that's the way I would put it. It's like once I became familiar with what I really am, consciousness itself, it was simply a different vantage point. And the pre-birth memory was just something I'd done preceding this and much more real than this, by the way. Like heads and shoulders above in lucidity and realness level of an experience. And if and the pre-birth memory is all, oh my gosh, this is hard to describe. Okay. It's all kind of tied together and there's a lot of veiling still in place. So I don't have access to everything, which is fine. I'm cool with that. I'm human right now.
Mm.
But there's kind of like there's a timelessness to it is what I'm trying to lift up. So there are aspects of this experience which are incredibly ancient feeling millions and millions of years, or I mean, you couldn't even put a linear time scale on it ago, but also happening right now. So I'm saying that because this, like finding this quote unquote memory, it was kind of like looking into a different layer of the now and seeing that there's this rich experience there. Something like that. That might be a different way to describe it instead of a memory. Yeah, so that just kind of arose and I was like, "Oh my gosh. Like none of us are human. This is cool. This is amazing. Like we are multidimensional beings of love. This is what we are." Like, and I just wanted to share it with people, and I understand it's not always the the case that people are ready to hear that, but I was very excited because in the reality of what we really are, there is nothing to fear. Like this is an amazing liberating truth. Yeah.
So Christian, when you're not in a physical body, how do you exist? What's your
hmm
form?
hmm Well, that's a natural question within the world of form because we think reality means form.
Mm,
So typically, when we want to know about something, we want to say, tell me the form. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Tell me sensory descriptions, because then I'll know, you know? Or tell me places. On Earth, we're big on places. We love places. We think reality is made of places. Okay, so there are places. There are absolutely places in higher systems. There is absolutely sensory experience. In fact, even more rich sensory experience than what we experience on Earth. And we can even have form. But I'm also sensitive to jump in and say, oh, it's this form and that form, or this place and that place, because that automatically limits it. What we truly are is that which precedes all form, the aliveness of beingness and spirit itself. That's what we really are. Okay, so the question really is, in higher systems, how can that express or know itself or be? And that depends on the reality system and other factors that I can't I'm not qualified to speak to. I don't have enough experience. But I can say at least that in the in-between live state, it was like I was a body of light and I was connected to all things and I could move at a whim and an intention. And I was telepathically connected with many other beings. And I could
mhm.
just go to different places instantaneously and just be there. And I remember a realm of just like all golden light that was so like rejuvenating and loving and I mean, it feels weak to just use like emotional descriptors for these things because it's way deeper than like a physical emotion. That's why I try to differentiate the terms emotion and feeling because this is feeling, but it's so deep of bliss and connectedness and freedom. Like the freedom is off the charts. So how do you describe that? What is that? Are there places there? Yes. Are they all connected to each other? Yes. How do you describe that? I don't know.
And did you sense that you had family and friends there?
Yes. So we have many soul connections that we forget while we're human. So I'll just say that I know many other beings, and I most of my pre-birth memory experience was of a time being you're never alone, okay? There's no such thing as alone. We can't be alone. Separation is not real. It's not fundamentally real. The experience of separation appears real on Earth, and we really believe in it, so we think we're separate. I'm lifting that up because even as I say I was quote unquote alone for significant periods of this experience, the connectedness with all other beings and all things is always there and always alive and always accessible. So it's not actually possible to be alone. Okay, so that qualification being stated, I remember spending time alone in solitude, experiencing my own being and the connectedness of things and reviewing things. I remember reviewing qualities of energy and having dialogue with beings. Like I remember my guide coming to me and having exchanges with me every once in a while. Yeah, I don't know if that speaks to your question, but more specifically to family or friends, yes, there are many other beings that we know. We have long history of experience. We have beings that we're vibrationally resonant with that I would call like a soul tribe or a soul family.
Mm,
So those are beings that we've just like known for a super long time, and they are in the same vibrational neighborhood as us, or maybe doing the same kind of vibrational work, you could say, as beings. I'm aware that that exists. In fact, I've run into a couple of those people here on Earth, which is exciting when that happens. And there's
yeah.
usually a really proficient energetic dialogue that can take place when that happens because we're already kind of speaking the same energetic language, even if the human doesn't remember it. Anyway, so the answer is yes, we do have that.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is because I have a pre-birth memory, and when they revealed themselves to me, I never experienced love the way I had love for
Ah,
these beings. It was just like and when I came out of the experience and came back, I was lucid dreaming it, and I came back and I sat up. It was like as if my heart had been ripped out. I was like, that's my family, they're my friends,
mm,
and it's just when you're here in a human body, it's like as if it's like there's something missing.
missing.
It's missing. It doesn't feel the same as when you're
Exactly.
there.
No,
So
it's not at all the same. And it's ironic because we use the term love here on Earth to describe something that we honestly, I mean, I don't mean to qualify this in a hard and fast literal way, but it's like we don't even experience love on Earth. It's like we can't even experience it. Well, now we do experience
Or a
love,
fraction.
but it's just a fraction,
Yeah.
right? I'm only putting it that dramatic way because in comparison to what you're describing, like what you just described, which is beautiful, that is not commonly felt on Earth. I'll just put it that way. And what we tend to feel here is like it has a lot of limitations piled onto it. And it's not this, it's like super obscured in comparison to that very transparent, personal, direct love that you're describing.
And Christian, what do you think that's down to? Is it the density of this reality that
Hmm.
just it slows down that connection of love between us?
Yeah. So the nature of this reality is that it's super dense vibrationally. And participating in this reality is facilitated by a, I'll just use this term slightly loosely, a necessary veiling. It's not literally necessary, but but practically speaking, in order to have the human experience and be here in this vibrational place, it means an obscurement from all the rest. That's kind of built into this framework, this
Mm,
density. And so I love Tom Campbell's description of the body and brain being a limitation set. I think that's a really
yeah.
good way to think of it. And I like to lift up that's kind of an understatement. Like like the limitation of the body and the brain and the physics is nuts. It's so off the charts high. The amount of limitation that we're wearing. Now we might think, oh, this is normal. I just get up every day and go to work and I'm just the body and the brain and the eyeballs and this is what I am. Oh my goodness. This is like dwelling inside of a dense tuna can and and being stuck in thick mud and trying to move. That's what being in the body is like. And so it's just a kind of part and parcel for that level of density that we don't commonly experience that higher nature. Now, that being said, this is important. Consciousness is shifting. So even though the limitation set is deep, it's actually neutral. It's not required to be so dense. And we get to do what we want with the density. This is really important. So as we awaken, as we choose to align with love and peace and freedom and joy in our own lives, as we wield a quality of intention, Tom Campbell originally started that term. I love that term.
Mm.
As we wield a quality of intention that is in alignment with love, that, like for real, align with it, which means
Yeah.
facing fear and not buying into the ego and all the shenanigans and doing all that stuff. As we really align with that, we are changing the vibrational temperature of the water, and that reduces the limitations because vibrationally we are moving closer, you could say, to the elevated states that are more natural to us. So that's a long-winded way of saying that what you just described is, I feel, is going to become more and more real on Earth as time progresses and as evolution unfolds and as love is chosen.
Okay, beautiful. Really well put. My next question is the choice in coming into this incarnation.
Yeah.
So if you have a pre-birth memory, I remember it being explained to me that coming down into Earth was the equivalent of only 20 minutes on that side. A full life
Yeah.
in Earth, 70, 80 years was only like 20 minutes. And it was kind of like, well, why wouldn't he go back in? I was like, okay. So did you have that sort of and actually, I remember coming down the tunnel and thinking, "Oh, I've fallen for it again." As I was coming back down into a body to be born
Oh,
to
really?
learn how to talk and walk and do all them things. So, did you
Yeah.
have that sort of counseling in between?
I did have counseling. I don't remember that. There was no comment to my knowledge specifically around, experiencing it as of only 20 minutes. But it is known on that side that a human lifetime is quite short by
Mm,
comparison to the scale of time that you could say this is hard to describe because we actually transcend all time at the deepest levels. But anyway, the scale of time that we're talking about is vastly huger. Okay, now that being said, what's very interesting, at least for me personally, is that I have experienced time on Earth as very slow. What I mean is my body is 45 years old, but I feel like I've been here 45,000 years, not 20 minutes at the human level,
on a human level,
at
right?
a
Yeah,
human level.
yeah.
because there's something about the actual immersion into this level of density and bringing in, I'll just say, like, kind of greater awareness of what's the physical is, that tends to make this time here seem even more rigorous or something. I don't know how to describe that. So I've really felt that in my life. So I'm aware that it might be 20 minutes or less, or I
Mm.
don't know, whatever, if blink of an eye, so to speak. But I'm trying to come to terms with personally and integrate, really process what feels like quite the converse to that, which is that life on Earth feels very long and has a lot of density packed into a lifetime. But I honor the comment, man. And that's beautiful that you felt that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the counseling. Like, how was it
Okay.
sold to you to come back in, Christian?
Well, in my case, okay, so I reviewed with my guide who I had been, what I had experienced, what like qualities I understood. I'm saying understood rather than have because it's not like you possess qualities so much as your being deepens. So it was like reviewing who am I? What am I? Like, what do I really like? What do I really understand and know? And what can I feel? What can I don't know, qualities of being. And there was like one that was super obvious as the thing that would be best for me to like work on. I put that in quotes because I don't like the words work on, and we don't have to. It's not like you need to do this, but it was quite obvious when I reviewed that there was this one specific, very, very low vibration fear that had been a really challenge for me in previous experiences. And I knew that processing that fear would be an amazing expansion of being and would help serve not only my own growth, but the growth of the whole. So I was actually brought two lifetimes for that purpose. The one immediately preceding this one, and then this one. Because the one preceding this one, after I accepted the veil, I quickly rejected the veil and I caused a miscarriage for the body that was to be mine out of fear. I rejected it. I smote the veil and pushed my way out. I had a life review for that life, even though I was only in the fetus for a very short time. I don't know how long,
Okay,
but not
wow.
long. And I saw how I had caused grief for the mother and many hundreds of others that the mother would then affect because of my choice to reject the veil. So that life experience and this life experience had the same goal, which was to have an opportunity to meet this very certain specific fear vibration and to really heal it, to really, really come to terms with it. So when I reviewed my life, and I reviewed it in great detail with the help of my guide, and I asked many questions about the life, I asked about certain qualities I wanted to have. And I experienced, okay, so it's like reviewing a flow chart of millions and millions and millions of possibilities all at once, like in a second. And it was like if you take a tree and started the thick end of the tree and worked your way out to the branches, it was like I reviewed all the branches of many possible outcomes all at once. And I felt like what it would be like to be me. So there were events in it, there were places in it, but it wasn't primarily about events and actions and places. It was more about what would it be like to like feel like Christian, to be this human character here. Like, what would it be like? And then from that review, I asked questions about the life and had a dialogue and tweaked certain things. And I knew things about the body, like I knew the body had significant limitations that other bodies don't, and that it would make the day-to-day experience more biochemically challenging, and that would actually be useful because it would be humbling and it would like put a cap on my ego, so to speak, because I would be constantly challenged by this biochemistry. Just one example. I remember asking to be intelligent in this life because I had experienced that in previous lifetimes, and I knew that I enjoyed that quality, and I didn't want to like not do that this time. And then I remember asking like, can I have a small bit of memory, like just a tiny little bit? Like I don't want to forget everything, but just like a tiny little bit. And they said you can do that, but it will make this life more challenging. And I knew why, because having even a small bit of memory increases the contrast. Because having some awareness of there versus here it can be very painful. It can cause homesickness,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
debilitating homesickness, which is something that I've dealt with. Anyway, those are just some examples. So there was a dialogue with my guide arranging this life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can totally relate to what you're saying because I was also shown a number of past lives
Mm.
and actually living them, like being so
Yes, in them.
in them. And when
They're
I
you.
came back, I was devastated, and actually I
Wow.
wrote a book. And when I was writing the book, I was, I kept notes on everything. And when I was writing the book, I was revisiting those scenes and like just tears flowing and flowing, flowing from these past life memories. And I can understand why we're veiled because that's going
Mm.
to have a big influence, right? If we're walking
Oh yeah.
around this life with pre-life memories,
Yeah, it
totally
creates
going
a
to affect.
discrete, yeah, it creates a sorry to interrupt. It creates a discrete experience where you're free from certain conditioning and pains of those past life. You're still you, so there may be still certain fear patterns that you take with you because you are who you are you. So you're still
Mm.
you in each experience. So you may have certain like themes that you're bringing with you, but even so, yeah, a given lifetime is an opportunity to have like kind of a fresh slate and to work independently from those previous experiences. I'm sorry to hear that was so painful for you. Are you saying it was painful?
I'm over it now, Christian.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like when they came up, right? It was painful, but then I don't know, they just kind of faded out over time.
Hmm.
If I revisit them, if I really like, go back
Yeah.
over one of the audios, I can definitely sense into that. But I got
Hmm.
over them pretty fast.
Was that because there
Um,
was fear and pain in those lifetimes you were processing now?
Yes, there was fear and pain, definitely, in one of them, definitely, and then just missing loved ones from them lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, you spoke briefly about a higher aspect of ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
It can't, yeah. Yeah. What pops to mind immediately is we can't actually talk about it. Because what I mean is simply that the most important thing to get to is like straight to the heart of what we are,
Yeah,
which is consciousness itself, which can't be named. It is aliveness and bliss and joy and love and freedom that has no end, no limit, no boundary, no form to it. It precedes form, and out of its own joy of being, it creates form, expresses through form.
yeah,
So I'm saying that because like often we say, well, give me the next level. Like what higher up, what am I? Well, give me more form. I mean, that's okay if we talk about form. It's just that there's such a liberation possible in knowing, oh, you don't actually need any form, man. Like you are so alive and so free. You are beingness itself. Now, I know that that sounds abstract, but the thing is, this stuff that we're trying to name, this substance, it is so full. It's not just empty.
it's full.
It's not
Yeah,
only empty, it's full of all things. And you as an individuated piece of that, as Tom Campbell would say, an IUOC, an individuated unit of consciousness or a soul, as a soul, as one drop of the ocean, you are a precious, unique expression of that whole. And so what are you really? You are that. You are that unique, precious drop of the ocean that the whole ocean, you're like a puzzle piece in the puzzle of the whole ocean. Then you're the only puzzle piece of that puzzle piece. And that puzzle piece transcends any given reality system and has its own experience. We could say its own qualities. Even though we're talking about something non-dual here, we can still say that that drop has qualities. And those are important and precious. So
that's
that
our
at the heart is what,
beingness, Christian, is it?
I mean, the terms get, it's hard to, we have to be careful with the terms, I guess.
Yeah,
But I'm using beingness as interchangeable with consciousness and soul, though there are slight, of course, differences to the terms, because it's all the one thing. Like there's just the one thing. There's not 10 things. There's consciousness, which we also call spirit, which we also call awareness, which we also call life with a capital L, which we also call beingness, awareness. These are all just words describing this thing that can't be described. So as we get in touch with that, that thing is just total love and freedom and peace and joy.
mm, mm.
And that freedom and that love and that peace and that joy can shine through creatively into multiple reality type experiences, including the physical, the very unique, interesting, rich, dense physical experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I would probably say that our beingness is also that free will awareness unit. So there's an aspect of that
Hmm.
that can make decisions, as Tom would
Yes.
say, move towards love or move towards fear, a decision
Yes. Yes.
space.
Yeah. So the way I like to comment on this is, so I like to say the fundamental substance is consciousness, and the fundamental action or thing that happens anywhere in all things is intent, which just means that consciousness is moving something to going in a direction. Now, Tom Campbell brings this to more specificity as he says, okay, but then choice making happens by some aspect of the self that is in a context. It needs a context to make choices. So we call that a free will awareness unit. A personality is another term for that I've heard used
Mm,
in certain channeled sources. I like the term personality. So a personality portion of the self is engaged in a reality system and makes choices in the context of that system. Making choices is kind of like the end. But the first thing is, why is it making choices? What is the quality of those choices? What is its real why, its deepest motivation? That's quality of intention. And the reason I'm lifting this up in response to your comment is I actually wouldn't personally say that we only wield intention through a free will awareness unit because something had to precede and give rise to the context in which a free will awareness unit can make choices. And that something is consciousness, and consciousness moved in some way to give rise even to context reality systems where choices could be made. So I'm just calling all of that intent. So intent operates at many different levels. You've got at the highest level or closest to the source, you have source moving in ways. You have the soul moving in ways. You have then the soul through the personality moving in ways by making choices here on earth and going to work in the morning, you know.
mm. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. You mentioned fear. So
Hmm.
f
Yeah.
explain fear and why we need to work through our fears in this
Okay.
reality.
Great. Okay. So this is really meaningful. Sounds unrelated, but this is related. Okay, so what's the fundamentally real thing? The spirit we just tried to describe. That's
Mm.
the real thing.
The
It's always the
experiencer.
yes, consciousness itself, that he who she who it which experiences. That is that consciousness is always first. Okay. It's already love, peace, freedom, and joy.
Yeah.
And it's that which exists. It's that which is most real. But it then chooses to deepen itself. And the only way that, not the only way, I don't want to put limits on it. The way that it chooses to deepen itself is to create a context within itself. And we call that context duality, where now you have limitations. You have a rich set of form, a context in which to operate. Okay. So we dive into these realities of context and duality to engage something that we're not. Like we've
Yeah.
made something that we're not so that there's a space to expand into. Fear is what happens when we buy into a perception that is not in alignment with the truth. So when we buy into a perception of shame or powerlessness or unworthiness of love, or whatever, that's not true. We are not powerless or lack of freedom. There's another big one. We perceive we're trapped and not free. That prompts fear immediately because we have now bought into a perception that is not the truth. Okay, so fear is just a synonym for yet unevolvedness. At least that's what I like to put it. Because it just means there's some aspect of this creation that we have not fully integrated yet. We've not fully seen it for what it actually is. Because when we actually say yes and actually see things for what they actually are, we find that fear is made of smoke. Now, it's not easy to see that when we're in fear. In fact, fear is the only hard thing, okay? There's actually nothing hard except our fear, our rejection, our ego patterns, and all the anger and hatred and all the stuff that comes out of ego because of fear. All those many, 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 many layers and all the shenanigans that the ego has created, all to try to escape the fear, to try to fill this hole that seems to have been made. But if we really go into the hole and we really own our own crap all the way, like for real, and we really feel everything, we find there's always some kind of negative perception down there that we bury, that we rejected. And when we truly face it and look at reality for what it really is, we find it wasn't actually even real in the first place. It
Mm.
wasn't even true. That allowing, that processing down into this apparent perception of fear, feeling it, healing it, allowing it, and choosing love and peace and freedom and joy in our lives instead, both consciously and by allowing ourselves to feel through the fear, that allows this expansion of being down into that space that we created. And that is the expansion of consciousness that we talk about, that Tom Campbell talks about. And that because it enables a new depth. So maybe we could just like give one very, very simple, specific example. Let's say that as a being in spirit, you've never been physical and you don't know what it is to be free because you've always just been free.
Mhm.
Well, if you come and live a lifetime and experience not free, now you understand what it's like to not be free. And now you have the contrast available to you as a point of perspective to fill out the space. So now you know what freedom is because you knew what not freedom was. But you even take it a step further. You actually process the not free. You actually really integrate that into what you are. Like you fully explore it. You come to terms with it. Now you really understand freedom. You see? Now you really can feel freedom in a way that you could never feel before. I'm mentioning this because in my pre-birth experience, I was inspired. Okay, before I had incarnated, I know this sounds wild, but but before I had ever
Not to me.
incarnated, okay, before I had ever incarnated, I remember coming across a being who had, and I was so incredibly inspired by the quality of his nature. It was so full of love and power and wisdom and freedom, and I'm like, do you feel as much freedom as I feel that you feel? It's something I asked him telepathically, and he shared yes. And he showed me this. Well, he showed me many things, qualities of being, experiences he had had, but one in particular was a physical lifetime where he had suffered a long-term health condition. And the way that he chose to meet that experience, you see, allowed this incredible refinement of who he was. And he got to keep that forever. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that. I want to, I'm just like so inspired. And at first he said something like, and this is not negative, but it was just like, well, that's what they all say. Like, you just don't know how hard this is. And I was like, no, I mean it. Like, and he said, well, go talk to your guides. So here I am in the physical, having gone through many health challenges in this life and having certain challenges that are just very difficult for me personally. But it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay, you see, because can we say yes to even that depth? That depth is an offering. I know I've gone on for a long time here, but I just have to say one other thing. In my
No, no.
pre-birth experience, I knew that this was like being given a winning lottery ticket. Being given the chance to play a human and to have this depth of contrast was like the most precious gift. It was like, oh my goodness, I feel so honored that the whole system, the larger consciousness system, in Tom Campbell's terms, sees value in me as an individual being playing this character and working through this experience. Wow. I felt so honored. You see? Anyway, so that's a very long answer to your question, but in short, it's a part of the expansion of consciousness. Fear is just a symptom that we haven't processed something all the way yet. And so it's like a signpost that there's evolution possible, guys. Because love is the truth, not fear.
So it's a way of us using our bodies, right? Sensing into the
Yes.
body, sensing that there's fear, there's contraction, and using that as a way to evolve, become love.
Yes.
Beautiful. Christian, just on the note, right? Do you think that souls underestimate the difficulty of Earth and coming
Okay,
here?
this is a great question. I love this question. Okay, so it's kind of yes and no. So let me just, okay. So first of all, there is clear sight, at least how I experienced it, was that there was very clear sight about what this life would be, like what it could be, what it was very likely to be. Okay. However, so when I say clear sight, I mean I actually experienced it from a first person perspective. So it's not a decision made in ignorance by any means. Okay, however, the I will acknowledge that the bliss of being and the connectedness of being and the knowing of our own immortal multidimensional nature means we might not fully appreciate, I guess, what this level of contrast really means when we're actually here. I'll just put it like that. So it's not made out of ignorance, but it's also because we know the more real truth. And in the context of the more real truth, this is nothing. This is nothing. The suffering we might experience on earth is like nothing. But to actually be here and experience it without that knowing, that is its own thing. That's why we come, though, you see, is
Mm.
because there's a novelty added in the surprise of, oh, when you don't have your connectedness consciously available to you, now how does it feel? Now how do you react? Now what choice do you make? That is the value.
So,
Yeah.
Christian, okay, so just on to add to that, right? So, the number of lives you have come in as a human, right? And
Hmm.
I know that there's also so maybe like those souls that have been human many times, and I know that there are other beings. Some people call them star seeds, and they come from
Hmm.
different places
Yeah.
in reality. They come here maybe for the first time or maybe only a handful of times, and those seem to really struggle. Those beings that
Yes.
haven't been human very often, yeah, very many times.
Yeah. That happens. Part of that is that they offer a vibrational benefit because they are bringing a temperature with them that helps the temperature of the water of this pond. They help shift the mean, the average, just by being here.
Yeah,
But it is a huge stark contrast to other higher reality systems or other even planets where I don't want to get too far on the weeds, but where the vibration is
yeah.
much different. So I remember I only have a few I only have access to a few specific former lives. I know I've lived at least hundreds of times. I remember after a meditation seeing all these spheres that were my experiences and I knew they were all me. But I know that I've been human at least several times. I know that I was a I know this sounds wild. I know that I was a migrating bird at one point. And I know that I've lived at least one life in a non-human intelligent civilization in this universe. So I have some specific snippets of memories from those lives, but like if I get curious, which obviously it's quite curiosity provoking, I will usually get this gentle, like, no, you don't need to see that right now. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, that's fine. I respect that. I respect the limitations.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the migrating bird. I experienced myself as a hammerhead shark swimming with thousands of other sharks.
Wow.
And just seeing that like my brain, my thoughts were moving the body and yeah, it's
Mhm.
fascinating, right? But what do we do with it really?
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we can evaluate that from the level of being and at the time when it's useful. So I try to remain focused to the Christian thing because this is quite useful. But yeah, I get curious at times. Like for instance, I know there was one human life I lived as a female, a woman who had given birth, and I remember the birth being extremely painful. And then I remember being pregnant a second time, and the fear that I've experienced in this life, which is around being unable to escape pain, like being trapped in a situation where I'm gonna have to face pain, I'm gonna feel pain, or I
Mm.
am feeling pain that I can't escape. The fear is around that type of energy. I remember feeling that in that life as the woman, just knowing that I was going to have to give birth a second time. Like the context is different, but it was still me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what is the end goal, right? What is the purpose? What are we here for? What's the purpose of us incarnating into a human body, going
Yeah.
through a lifetime? What are we trying to achieve at the end, Christian?
Can I speak to purpose without using the word end goal?
Sure.
The purpose is the expansion of love and joy through the integration of experience and through choice making. Yeah. We are expanding love and joy through both coming to terms with and really processing everything we're experiencing here and being the human and being the person and making the choices and actually walking down the street and actually being a man or woman and actually being young and old. And also then within that context, making choices that are either in alignment with love or fear. And that's what I love about Tom Campbell's model is he keeps coming back to that. Are we choosing are we like really aligning our quality of intention with love rather than fear and ego and all the shenanigans? Those are the like real two huge bodies of what we're doing in the physical and actually in other reality systems too. Because through that, we are participating in the deepening of what we are. And since we are what is, we're connected to the ocean, we are participating in the deepening of all that is and the deepening of that primary thing too. So we're actually performing a service, you could say, by being human.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm kind of jumping into the minds of the viewers and listeners now. So is it necessary that they have pre-birth memories or
No.
they no.
No, no, not at all. I mean, the system is really intelligent. I know that we seem to think it seems like often the prevailing mindset is, oh, the world is dangerous and it's chaotic and it's destructive and everything dies. And that, I mean, it's true that everything dies. But this whole simulation is arising from systems of incredible wisdom and evolution. And that includes the veiling.
Yeah.
Okay, so like we come intentionally to have the human experience, and that means being the human, man. You got to be the human, and being the human means typically, often, not always, but usually it means being veiled, at least in large part, to your larger nature. And that's okay. Like that's you don't necessarily need to see that. Now that being said, it's interesting because I found that usually it's the ego that like really wants to like pick up a new identity and oh, I want to learn these new things about myself and now I can hide behind that. Whereas if we're actually willing to not know, it's ironic. That's usually when the deeper knowing kind of arises. It's quite backwards, like backwards in a in a logical way. Like I like how Tom Campbell says when you go into meditation, like what is your quality of intention you're bringing into it.
Mm.
That's something I like to lift up when I speak about meditation because it's like, why are you really doing it? If you're really going to find out who you are for real, and you're really going to process your crap, you will get help. And then whatever happens arises out of that quality of intention. Like quality of intention is first. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm just putting that in the yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's really well put because I remember when I was going through my period of having out of body experiences. I mean, they were great, right? I was having a lot of fun doing them, but there was
Exactly.
no real evolution of my soul or being, right? The quality of my consciousness wasn't getting any better, right? I was just getting out of body and going flying here, flying there,
Um,
coming back and
I
had a
yeah, I would largely agree, but I wouldn't wholly agree only because all experience lends to the evolution of consciousness.
sure.
It's just when there's less weight. So like an out of body experience typically occurs in a reality system that's a lot less limiting.
Yeah.
And it's like lifting weights. It's like if you've lifted 100 pounds your whole life or 5,000 pounds, that's kind of like what being human is like. And then you go into a reality system where you're lifting two or one, you might say there's nothing happening there. Well, it's just a lot less limiting. The weights are less, and when the weights are less heavy, yeah, there might be less opportunity for muscle growth.
Mm,
But on the other hand, all experience is a part of this great tapestry of unfolding of being, you know. So I'm just lifting that up because I really don't want to I don't want to discount the value of any experience. I know you're not either. I'm
yeah.
just trying
Yeah,
to be careful with the word
I'm not,
usage.
I'm not. I mean, one of the biggest gifts that I had from an out-of-body experience was I knew that I did not die. You know, maybe the
Yes, amen.
body dies, but there's
Yeah.
a part of me that
Yep.
will live on, and that was huge for me.
Yes.
That was
Isn't
one of
it
the biggest.
it's so liberating. It's like, yeah, I hear you. I totally hear you.
Yeah. So,
I wanted to tell people so bad. Like I remember, and I've shared this before, but this is silly. Okay, this is just silly. But like I realized that, and I was like, people need to know this. So there was like a 5 minute period where I told my wife, I'm gonna like put this on flyers and put it in people's mailboxes. I'm gonna say you're a multidimensional being of love, and you have nothing to fear. She's like, yeah, you'll be that guy if you do that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be that guy. I mean, obviously I didn't do that. That's not the way to reach people. But
no.
I'm just saying that that realization, I'm very passionate about that. I'm so passionate about that because it's true. It's real. Like it's actually real that you are not going to die. No one listening to this call will die as a being. We will all die as a physical body. Every single physical body participating and listening to this conversation is going to croak. There's no escaping that. But The reality is we do not die. There is no such thing as death. And that is incredibly liberating.
That's incredible. Has there been anything you feel that I haven't asked about, or is there anything you would like to just finish up on or share?
Something that comes to mind is there's this importance to being your true self, which means being authentic. And I feel this great authenticity with you. I love it. I wish I was nearer to you so we could hang out. You have this most
Thank
amazing
you,
energy, brother.
Christian. Thank
Your
you.
energy is amazing. So anyway, as people choose to be their real selves, like, because this spiritual path is not like, okay, now leave who you are physically and go to this la happy spiritual land. This is not about that. This is go find who you really, really are. And that includes everything that you feel and all the darkness too. But it also means you're allowed to be completely authentically you. You are. And in fact, it's important that you are, because as that piece of the puzzle, you should be the piece of the puzzle that you are. You're the qualities that you are, the being that you are, the uniqueness of you, whatever form. It doesn't have to be big. Just be yourself. I just feel like that's so important to lift up now, because so many people feel like for one reason or the other, usually conditioning or egoic things, that they can't be themselves.
Mhm.
You can be exactly yourself, man. It's good. Like, and if you take that into your life, it's very freeing. It's very freeing to be yourself. And as you do that, you automatically you return to a vibrational alignment. Actually, you don't know you're doing this, but by being your full self and saying yes to this moment and just being fully you, you actually begin to resonate in a way that's very powerful. Anyway, I just thought I'd lift that up. That's something that came to mind.
That's beautiful. And that's a great way to finish off, Christian. Thank you so much. You've been an incredible guest. Christian, I'm just going to also ask you to share your website and any kind of social media handles, your book. Do you
Sure.
want to tell us a little, just briefly
Sure.
about
So,
how
yeah,
people can
thank
get
you.
in contact with you? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Gareth. So, my website is awalkinthephysical.com, and the book is A Walk in the Physical. The book is available to be read online for free at the third link down on the book page on my website. It's not about money. It's also on Amazon in print and Kindle and audiobook. The book is a reality model that tries to describe what the human experience is and why. And everything we just talked about is kind of woven in throughout it, and it's kind of non-linear. So hopefully that would be helpful for someone. There's also many talks and videos on that website page. I'm happy to try to respond to emails, but I get far more than I can respond to. I apologize. But if you'd like to reach out to me, it's awalkinthephysical@gmail.com.
Wonderful. You've blown my mind today,
Oh, and
Christian,
I'm
I
going to
have to
say one
say.
last thing. And I
Go
have to
on.
remind myself, this is not fully active yet, but I just started my own YouTube channel after years of prompting from others. So I just
Wow.
posted on that YouTube channel just a 3-part meditation series that I recently facilitated that's useful. So I just thought I mentioned that in case it's helpful for someone.
So this is going to be the first podcast where you've linked to your YouTube, right? So
Well,
we're
I have them like indirect. This is your podcast, so yeah, this is on your channel, but I can at least link it. Yeah, I do link other
we'll
podcasts,
link
but
we'll link down below to your YouTube so people can
great.
find you.
Thank you very
And
much. That'd be
yeah,
great.
I'd be very happy to share your work, Christian. You've been
Thank
an
you.
incredible guest. I mean, I've had such a blast. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Christian.
Gareth. I love your energy, man. You're my brother. I love you.
Thank you.
Sorry for the delay in getting this set up. I really
No
appreciate everything
problem.
you're doing.
It was worth a wait. Definitely, definitely. And
Great.
there's no mistakes, right? Maybe it was just meant to be now.
Right.
Exactly.
I'll
Thank you so
align with that.
much.
Thank you,
Thank
brother.
you
Have a
to
great
the
day.
viewers and listeners. Thank you, guys. Take
Thank
care.
you. Take
Christian,
care.
bye-bye. Bye.
This has been the Endless Possibilities Podcast, where the journey of spiritual awakening and energy healing unfolds. Garrett is a lifelong seeker of truth, a spiritual teacher and author, and it's his passion to delve into the profound world of consciousness. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten something from it. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, the podcast is available on YouTube and all the major podcasting platforms. Find us on Instagram at _mother_force. Take care, and we'll see you soon on the Endless Possibilities Podcast.